My name is Cantu, and for the last few years I've been a video journalist in the sport of professional boxing. Being a media member has allowed me to understand the sport from an inside perspective, and I strive to report and create content that is informative, educational, and honest. Since starting my journey as a reporter in 2017, I have discovered and consistently noticed a huge problem that exists in boxing today. The use of performance-enhancing drugs has plagued competition and is a widespread issue that has increased in recent years.
Performance-enhancing drugs is a huge problem. If you look at the top 15 in the world today, you're probably going to find anywhere from 4 to 6, closing in on half of the top 15 have at some point in their career tested positive.
Take for instance the top 8 heavyweights according to Ring TV's official rankings. Of the top 8 heavyweights, 4 of them have at some point in their career tested positive for a banned substance. This is a staggering realization and only begs the question, why has this problem continued to persist?
Well, I think it's probably like any other sport. The athletes look for an edge. They do anything to get the victory, to get the advantage over their opponent. And obviously, in many instances, they work. It helps them with their performance, whether it's with their workouts and recovery, or overcoming injuries, or just making them bigger and stronger and faster. And obviously, if you're a professional athlete, certainly as a boxer, that would work to your advantage, especially if your opponent is clean.
It's your boy Young Cantu, and I've traveled to Tuscaloosa, Alabama to talk to Deontay Wilder and ask him about performance-enhancing drugs in boxing. Wilder is adamant about being a clean fighter. He's also the WBC champion of the world and is a solid representation of what it means to be a clean and true professional. Let's go see what he had to say. Wilder is an interesting subject pertaining to the topic of performance-enhancing drugs in boxing because he's experienced multiple instances in which his opponent tested positive for a banned substance. His 2016 fight against Alexander Povetkin was canceled because Povetkin failed a drug test for meldonium the week of the fight.
Man, unfortunately I have been that fighter that's been on the other side of the fence many a times. And what I mean by on the other side, meaning that I've had fights where guys have been tested for PEDs and my fight, got canceled because of that. For one, you think about all the hard work you put into and the preparation for this fight, but then on the other hand, you think about, damn, you got bills to pay. You got kids to take care of as well. And to see these guys do this, for me, it's just fucking disgusting. And I have to put that in there because that's what it is. It's disgusting to hear, and it's disgusting to see guys risk their lives, literally, to try to win. They have no type of confidence in themselves. So what they use a drug to enhance their body to do things that it don't normally supposed to do. They use a drug to enhance their body to do things that it don't normally supposed to do.
Wilder highlights the fact that performance-enhancing drug use negatively affects the livelihood of the clean fighters who pledge against drug use, and he talks about the lack of suspensions and punishments for fighters who test dirty.
Something needs to be done about it. I don't think the commissioners or the higher power that lies at hands, I don't think they put enough into send rules and boundaries down, because if you're gonna suspend a guy for 6 months, that ain't shit. Because 6 months is a regular time of sitting out after a fight. That's not any punishment. A punishment is, first offense, all right, I can understand you being a little lenient on them. You know what I'm saying? You go, how you may want. The second offense though, them years, 2 to 3 years, easy. The third offense, you get the fuck out of here. That's how I feel about it. You should, because if it's not any boundaries set and nothing is done about it, they're gonna keep on doing it. If it's not any boundaries set, they're gonna keep on doing it. They're gonna keep on doing it.
All three scorecards go to the winner by unanimous decision, Dillian Whyte.
Dillian, the body snatcher Whyte, failed the drug test for a banned substance, and Oscar Rivas and his team was not informed.
One of the most controversial performance-enhancing drug cases of recent memory featured British heavyweight Dillian Whyte, who, according to boxing journalist Thomas Hauser, was the subject of a doping cover-up in the United Kingdom.
Dillian tested positive. There was a fight. His opponent was not notified that Dillian had tested positive.
Not only did they allow him to fight under that circumstance, but the Rivas camp was never informed of what happened. And so if something bad had happened, or even if something didn't happen that was bad, you'd like the other side to be on a fair playing field and know what they're getting into. I know that if my opponent has failed the drug test, I want to know about it.
Whyte's promoter Eddie Hearn was left trying to come up with an explanation for the reports.
Okay, question for you. Was the WBC notified about the inquiry?
I don't know. That's a question for the British Boxing Board of Control. We don't notify people of confidential information between a fighter, the governing body, and the testing agency.
So effectively, Eddie Hearn admits that he did not notify Oscar Rivas, Dillian Whyte's opponent, nor did he notify the WBC of Dillian Whyte's failed drug test. Instead, Dillian Whyte, the British Boxing Board of Control, and UKAD, United Kingdom Anti-Doping, the agency that was involved in administering the tests, had a private meeting just before the fight and cleared Whyte to fight.
How can you allow somebody who is tested positive, can you allow that fight to happen without his opponent knowing? Nobody can justify that. I don't care what they say.
When they have information of a positive anabolic steroid sample, that fight should not happen.
Well, it's terrible. I mean, PEDs put the opponent in danger. It has to be stopped. And I thought that the British Board of Boxing Control, whatever they call themselves, did the wrong thing. Not necessarily letting the fight go on, but not letting the other side know. I mean, that's horrible. How can you do that?
The handling of the Whyte case was an example of how the commission, the drug testing agency, and the promoter failed to be transparent about a positive finding. With no ultimate oversight in boxing, Whyte was eventually exonerated by UKAD from all wrongdoing.
It was done so in the dark and so in secret that even if it was done above board, everything the way they did it made it look like it was shady.
To my knowledge, nobody is contesting today the accuracy of the story.
He never tested positive for steroids. He never failed a drugs test. It wasn't like we just phoned up UKAD and went, brush it under the carpet and we'll just talk about it later. Brush it under the carpet and we'll just talk about it later.
PEDs are a huge problem in all sports, but especially boxing, because you need testing 365 days a year. You can't do this testing, a couple of weeks before the fight starts when guys can cycle on, cycle off. So everyone's really in suspicion.
As much as they can, test you and do all this stuff, there's scientists on the other side, and they can kind of get away with stuff. You got the top scientists, trying to prevent things and doing this test and that test and this test, but then you got the top scientists knowing how to get around that stuff. So it's always gonna be that battle between those two, if you want to say good and evil. Or
this is the worst possible sport in the entire world for you to take performance enhancers, because if you take them, you're not hitting a ball out of a ballpark, you're hitting another man's brains and body.
I played baseball myself, and I went through the steroid era. I was a natural athlete, so I understand. And that was baseball. That's not even somebody trying to put hurt on another man, So I think that hopefully it cleans up like baseball did, where they start getting some real suspensions and real fines, where people start losing money over this stuff.
Some of them doing it just for everyone think they don't get caught. Some people start out early in their career and do it because they really don't get drug tested. It helps them get wins and it set them up for big fights later on in their career.
You know, there's a lot of pressure on these fighters to perform at the highest level. And, of course, you want to impress people. And, you know, when you look great, you don't think about the side effects. Like, you know, steroids could cause heart attacks, strokes later in life. You don't think about that. You think about the short-term effect, like, I'm going to be a world champion.
Well, first of all, the athlete got to understand the severity of taking enhancement drugs. You know, it's not healthy at all. And I think they just need to be a little stricter on the testing process, you know, and take it a little more serious than what they're doing. But like I said, it's not only that it's cheating, but it's also cheating an athlete, a young athlete, out of his life, possibly.
Whoever gets caught using drugs in boxing should be banned. Not suspended, banned.
Banned for life?
Banned for life, that's right. If you're going to cheat, listen, you get in the ring, you fight another man, that man's putting his life on the line. So you're going to cheat and to make yourself stronger and bigger, and then you hurt, God forbid you hurt the guy and he can't fight no more. Matter of fact, he's out of commission for life. So if you get caught using drugs, ban their asses. That'll stop all the BS.
Franchon Cruz Dezern took on Alejandra Jimenez at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas for the WBC and WBO Super Middleweight Championship of the World.
Big right hand right there by Dezern. Jimenez ate it, came straight forward.
The fight was a 10-round brutal slugfest filled with high-action exchanges as both women put it all on the line. Cruz Dezern was able to box nicely early and late, but Jimenez was relentless.
Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya applauding the action of this fight.
The fight was so rugged that at the end of the 9th round, Cruz Dezern lost her weave in her corner.
Beyonce fell down the steps and whipped her hair. A bitch wig fell off in the ring, and I fought hard to the end, and that's what real champs do. My coach said, my husband said, they said, what you want, the belt or fucking hair? And I said, I want the belt, so I did what I had to do.
Many ringside observers felt that Cruz outboxed Jimenez, but a controversial split decision gave Jimenez the win, and she was the new WBC and WBO Super Middleweight Champion of the world.
You know, some close rounds in there, but I believe she won. Franchon, I believe, being a champion and fought the way she did.
That was a hell of a fight. And I think that deserves a rematch, and I wouldn't mind doing that fight in Cancun.
Unfortunately for Jimenez, the possibility of a rematch deteriorated when it was learned days after the conclusion of the fight that she had tested positive for a banned substance.
Both fighters submitted to drug testing, and when the test came back, the Jimenez had tested positive for a banned substance.
In fact, the substance that she used, stanozolol, is derived from testosterone and has muscle-building properties. The Texas Boxing Commission subsequently ruled the fight a no contest, and Franchon Cruz Dezern described her experience fighting an opponent who was on performance-enhancing drugs.
The way she was taking punches and the way that she was reacting, it was just crazy. I was like, something isn't right. You know, it got to a point I was literally fighting for my life. This person was going to do whatever they could to get that belt and kill me. And that's what you're supposed to do. But knowing that they were already enhanced and they had took all these different measures to cheat and do the wrong thing, it's really scary.
The WBO decided to reinstate Cruz Dezern as their champion. However, the WBC did not, and they still have yet to come out with a legitimate explanation as to why. What is the purpose of all this? What is the purpose of understanding performance-enhancing drugs in boxing? Well, with boxing being such a violent, brutal, and potentially fatal sport, it is important to understand and confront these issues so we can facilitate discourse toward alleviating this problem. Thomas Hauser believes there needs to be more enforcement of drug regulation.
components of enforcement are education, testing, and punishment where appropriate. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the fighters who have to step up. They're the ones whose lives are at risk.
Boxing needs to rid itself of performance-enhancing drugs because it ruins the reputation of fair competition and threatens the health and safety of the fighters.